All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Come on in. I love the fact that we have a great crowd of people. Hey, Tequila. Hey, D Brown. Hey, Andrea, Janika. You guys come on in. I'm excited about tonight's conversation. I'm so glad that so many of you took it seriously and are here ready to have this conversation. I put up a post on my Instagram earlier because when I announced that we were going to do this conversation, so many people were saying it was not necessary. So many people were saying, "Oh, that's just maybe you're assuming that there's colorism. Maybe you are." The people that are on the show are feeling it, but it's not true. Hey, Lenny C, thank you so much for joining us from London. That's so dope. And so I did a little bit of research, and I pulled just eight feature articles from magazines, The Griot, CNN, The Guardian, all these different outlets acknowledging that that colorism is very alive and well in television. And so I'm going to bring the ladies that are a part of the panel up, but I also want to make sure that a little ways through this conversation, I'm going to bring in some of you that have something to say as well, because we can't get past something by ignoring it. That's not how things work. And so what I said on the page was, well, we're going to talk about it tonight, whether it's true or not. There may be some situations that are, may be some situations that are not, but we're going to have a conversation about it. So with that said, I'm going to bring on the ladies that are part of the panel tonight. We have Tony. Welcome, Tony.
Hi.
We have Lee from this season of Ready to Love. Welcome, Lee. And we have Tamasha. How are you, lady? Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you. How you doing?
I am good. Y'all have to excuse me. My voice, all this coughing has my voice out, but it's okay. We're going to have this conversation today. So what I want to do first, because like I said, when I announced that we were going to do this, so many people told me that it wasn't necessary. And so I want each of you, we're going to just go through each of you guys' personal stories. Let's keep it as short as possible, but explain what your relationship with colorism has been over the span of your life. Because even though this is about how it shows up on reality TV is just art imitating life, right?
Right.
So I want us to talk about it from sister to sister. This is a safe place. I want to make sure that the chat knows that they are welcome to be a part of this conversation. However, anything negative, anyone's perspective, everybody has a right to their perspective. And just because you may not agree with it doesn't mean it's not valid. So let's make sure that we are respectful, or you will be escorted from the chat. And again, after we finish talking with the ladies, once we get into the conversation, I am going to post the link. So if some of you have something to say and you want to come up as well, you're going to be welcome to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Tony. And I want you to share with us a little bit about your personal story and your relationship with intraracial colorism. And the idea of intraracial colorism is how we deal with each other within the colored community. So African American issues. We're not talking about what other races think of us, specifically white people. This is what's happened to us inside, sister to sister, black person to black person. We're talking about skin colorism, and how we treat each other based on the color of our skin. I'm going to start with Tony.
My experience has been, because I have albinism, I don't look like the typical, what people stereotype as the black person, even to us. And I've had experiences where my son, people don't believe that he's my son. When I was married, and my son started school, I felt uncomfortable. I didn't want him to feel uncomfortable. So I allowed his father to go to represent both of us, because sometimes children can be cruel, even as adults. As an adult in African American church, I sing, and a lot of times I've been to churches where my people don't want to touch me. They don't welcome me. They think I'm white because they look at my skin and my hair color, and they just assume that I'm not. They don't look at my features. I happen to think I don't have. I think I sound like a black woman. Um, my experience has also been. Um, I don't. I sometimes I'm not black enough. I don't fit, and I'm not welcome to people that don't know who I am. When there's people around that know who I am, then they'll explain. There'll be a difference. Our people. Will even say to my son, I didn't know your mother was white. I mean, I've had experiences within my family with my brother because I guess it makes him uncomfortable. So he has to explain, my sister has this. And even in the heat of arguments, because brothers and sisters fight, I've been called, names that a white piece of bread, a ghost, Casper. And this is from my brother. So it's also made me not feel comfortable even going to places. I didn't want to go to a black college because I felt uncomfortable. If I felt uncomfortable at home, I knew I would feel uncomfortable there. So that's just a little bit of my story.
I thank you for that, and I thank you for being a part of this conversation, Tony, because I think that um, a lot of times we think from our perspective and what we've heard and what we've experienced, and we don't realize that there is someone else experiencing something on the other side of that. Again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. This is going to be a conversation I think is necessary. I think we need to do this more often. I want to read a quote from the griot before I move on to Tamasha. And that quote is colorism is a spectrum that Black communities have yet to reckon with. When it comes to solving problems like colorism, our collective healing would go a lot further if we honored the specificity of each other's experience. And that's what tonight is about. Tonight is about honoring everyone's experience in its totality. So, whatever that experience is not wrong. I also see some people saying that certain people should be on the panel. This panel is not necessarily just about Ready to Love. It's just about Black women, and so we have Lee from Ready to Love, and we may have more conversations like this. But I just want to be clear that this conversation is about colorism and how it shows up in our lives, including reality TV. But that's not the only bit of value. So I wanted to have some women that we could just hear some stories and have a real conversation. With that saying, let's move on to Tamasha. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your story, and then Lee, and then we'll invite some of the audience to share as well.
Okay. Well, hello. For those that don't know me, no, I'm not on the show, but I am a cast member friend. So I've gotten to know everyone. And so this colorism thing was quite unique as it started to build up because this is something that I'm kind of learning new. I'm 42 years old and I'm a West Coast born and raised native. And in California, you don't really see, back in 81 and growing up then, you didn't really have racial disparity that was as obvious and seen as you do in the South. Once I went Air Force, and dealt with that community, I still didn't realize that I was dealing with racism and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I moved here to Montgomery, Alabama, that I actually seen colorism, as we would call it, to the full effect. And so my experience really didn't hit home until I started to move into promotion and management positions here. Because of my Air Force history and because of my level of skill and all of that and degree, I've always had a salary type job. So I'm accustomed to being picked on because people may call me white because of how I speak. I'm accustomed to the separation of that even in school. I always had a certain grade point average, so I was always the only black person in my class. I went to a private white school at Hardin Simmons University as well. So that part didn't rock me until the break room and the lunchroom and after work, when my fellow Black community would pick on me and would say I either got the position because of affirmative action or they almost felt a pity, like I was just a quota being met. Um, Community wise, I started to run into it as far as when I gave birth to my children. I have two children by a man that is probably two drops darker than Miss Tony. And with my complexion, I didn't even realize I had one until I had so many people um, really watering and showering me because of how light skinned my children are.
Mm.
And so that was the first time that I started to really feel anxiety, because I started to feel that people were not even wanting me to have my children. It was like a weird separation. They was thanking me for having my babies, but they were treating me like I was just like I wasn't the mother. And so I dealt with some psychological issues with that, starting to question my own beauty, if my children would recognize me, if they would feel comfortable with me as they begin to grow up. Their father passed away right after we had our second child due to fentanyl. So I'm the only quote dark skinned person in this house. So there was a lot of anxiety that came along with that. And then when I would reach out to Black community for support, and this may sound harsh coming off the hip because I'm really trying to do a good job of being on good behavior.
Mhm.
The first thing that I got was it was almost like because of my complexion and because of the stereotype of being darker, we're almost expected to tolerate a certain amount of pain. So even though we're Black, and even though, as far as African, yeah, we've been used throughout history to be the catalyst for a lot of science and a lot of projects and base. But even in our own community, we use that as a measure to see if whether or not we even want to help you.
Yeah.
So some looked at me and was like, oh, well, that's what come along with the territory. But I had some other fair-skinned friends that went through, and it just seemed to be a bit in that favor. Even with agencies, programs, different things like that, it was shunned away. If it wasn't for my military, they would have not. Even when I tell people I've been Air Force, it's just the mindset as far as colorism and the way that we play promotions and things I've dealt with. It's a plague that's within our community. And I
Mhm.
think that this season is provoking a lot for a few different reasons, not just the season alone, but just because of where we are as a society.
Mhm.
That quote that you opened up with hit right on the head. If we don't really start having a full confrontational conversation about this matter, we
Mhm.
are going to implode in a very gross and dramatic way. And this tier of color that we have developed, that has come from the colonization and the European influence, even though we know this, it's almost like something we can't get rid of. It's like something we can't separate. It's like yolk to the egg.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my perspective that I've had with that experience. I'll stop there.
No, I appreciate that. I want to, before we go to Lee, and then we our other panelists, Candace Zenon just joined. She's an author. I
I,
thank her for being here as well. I want to speak to something that you just said, Tamasha, because that's the problem I think we're seeing a lot on reality TV.
yes,
Not necessarily overt colorism, right? So no one is
right,
saying, well, you're not attractive because of this, but there's the understanding that when we look at Real Housewives of Potomac, how
yes,
Candace says something is received so much different than how
yes,
Ashley says something. And
correct,
we have to understand that a lot of times it is very subtle, and we may not even understand it ourselves because a lot of us have been conditioned this
yes,
way, growing up. So where it does seem like, oh, if she has a harder job, that's okay for her because
right,
of what she looks like. And so I
correct,
just want to make sure that we're not, as we're listening to each other, we're listening from a place of understanding that this is not something that's on the surface. These roots are very deep. When you talk
yes,
about the work that was done in the hospitals, where doctors would say, oh, Black women don't have, the darker they are,
yes,
they don't experience pain the same way. So this goes very deep, and it also is something that a lot of us are conditioned to just thinking that way. It's programming. It's not always very surface driven. All right. So now, again, thank you so much for jumping in, Candace and Lee. The floor is on you.
Hey y'all, I'm so happy to be back here with y'all. This topic is definitely very near and dear to my heart. As just coming out, like even as a small child, so my mom is way lighter than me. My sister, like I'm the only chocolate drop. I'm the only dark skinned woman. So I felt immediately as a small child like something is wrong. Like none of the girls are dark. And my mom would try to keep me, because I was a tomboy, extreme tomboy. Like growing up, I want to go outside and play football. And my mom is like, no, you need to come in the house. And I never understood why she was saying that. And as I grew into adulthood, we look back at the pictures. baby, I stayed outside. It was like I was extremely dark from playing outside. And I didn't understand why she was trying to block me from that, but she was just trying to shield me from the backlash that I would get from that. My dad did a really good job of trying to prepare me without telling me what actually was going to happen when I went into school. Because he was like, oh, baby, he would always tell me, they used to call me Skid Mark, all the names that they used to call him. And I was like, why he keep telling me all these dark jokes that people say about him? So when I got to school, that happened immediately. When I went to public school, I went to private school and it was fine because it was like a Muslim school and none of this happened. I went to a public school and this girl immediately was like, you're a burnt cookie. And I was like, well, at least I'm done. like I don't really know. Like it didn't really, I think they had prepared me so much at home for what was to come outside, that I'm really thankful that they kind of prepared me by just telling me that these are the things that might be said without really just saying that this, your life is going to be a little bit different. I think it's important for us to have this conversation, and I'm also saddened by the fact that we still have to have this conversation, just because being a Black person, period, comes with enough struggle, and to see that we're not able to overcome this plight within our own community. And I honestly don't think that in my lifetime that we will see the end of this, just because it's hidden beneath preference, which is like this covering, like, oh, I prefer people who are not dark, but you have to look at the root of where that comes from. Like, why do you prefer someone who doesn't look like your mother? So it's a lot to unlock here, but I'm excited to have the conversation with y'all. As far as my experience on the show, I definitely want to be clear in that I'm here to speak with y'all on my experience just based on like my life. Being in reality TV, it wasn't necessarily my experience, just because I tend to lean towards other things because I don't want to reduce people to being that simple. Like, I don't want to reduce you to the fact that, oh, you chose her or you're doing this because of that. Every opportunity that is not given to me, I always just try to look at it as that wasn't for me. God did not have that for me, as opposed to just being a victim. But it definitely does exist, and I want to acknowledge and definitely share with y'all my perspective on the topic.
I appreciate that, Lee. And I think that I'm the same way as you. I think that I try to look at things like, okay, I'm not going to allow, you're never going to make me a victim, whether that's where you're coming from or not. But I think that because it is clear that that is a big part of the conversation, both externally and internally on reality shows. I had to use a comment that was said by one of the men on Married at First Sight. You guys know I do a lot of commentary on that dating show as well. Well, that's not necessarily a dating show, but it's a reality show designed to help people find love. And one of the guys on that show said, and I quote, "I really don't prefer women that are darker than me. When it comes to marriage, you've got to be with someone that melts your butter." So, and that's not to down him. That's just saying that this is the mindset that some people have. When I announced this conversation, a young lady got on my YouTube and said, well, the answer is that we should just stop having darker skinned women on Ready to Love, because that's not who the men are attracted to. So with those type of statements being said, we have to have this conversation. So I just want
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely told in a conversation that was not on camera, that because I asked, I'm very like, what is your preference? Because again, if you get to liking too many, it's too broad of a spectrum. I'm going to ask you, what is your preference? And there was an instance where I was told, well, if I were to date you, you would be the darkest girl that I ever dated.
That's it. That's why we're
and that turns the switch off for me completely on a person, because like, one, why would you sit in front of me and tell me something like that? Because I could say you would be a lot of things, but that's rude. It is not necessary to say something like that, because I look at those kind of comments where guys are like, oh, I don't normally date dark girls, but for you, I'll make an exception. That's saying, oh, I'm giving you a chance, even though you're less deserving to me. So I really don't. I really don't appreciate those kind of things. But that definitely happened. But I just, continued because it's not new to me.
So my A-list journey said a man who prefers a lighter woman has a preference, just like a black woman asking for dark men only. My problem with that, my A-list journey, is that I think we can all have preferences. But when the preference, just what Lee said, when the preference is rooted in your value is not enough, right? It's not just about skin color. It's about the fact that I'm placing a value on you based on your skin color. I'm also saying that it's wrong for us to do it to men as well. We have to stop saying that. There's also a very real conversation that has to be said concerning men, because a lot of us equate masculinity with darker skin.
Yes.
I'm married to a biracial man, and we were talking about this, he said, he's constantly been called beige, light bright, damn near white. You're not one of us. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of times that black men will try to reduce his manhood based on the fact that he is lighter skinned. But tonight we're talking about women. I'm not saying that that's not wrong, but we're saying anytime we're basing characteristics based on color alone, that's a problem. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on to my fellow author on the panel. Thank you so much for joining. I've asked each of you to kind of give us a little bit of your backstory and your personal experience with colorism, and then we're going to involve the audience and get into a conversation. We can't hear you. Is your sound on? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, we lost her for a second. I think she was muted. But do you guys let me see if she jumps back on. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Candy Zenon. I'm a life improvement coach and an author. And I was so excited to have this conversation because of the title, Colorism in Reality TV. Because it is our reality, but the fact is it's now being televised. So the conversation that happened in the living room has now made it to TV. Mm-hmm. And my experience, I'm from Louisiana, so I was used to, different segments of people based on color. You had Creole, which is also a language, was also defined as a group of people. You had, and then, they classified you by shades. So the conversations that mostly took place were from older people. So I personally never experienced colorism until I moved to Dallas, Texas. I was 17. I just graduated from high school. A couple of classmates stated, "Hey, you want to move to Dallas?" I was like, "Yeah, uh-huh." That's how I made all my important decisions back then. So I moved 8 hours away from my small hometown, which was 4 main streets, 2 highways in Louisiana. And just contrary to what I was used to when you stepped into a room, a group of women, you identified a sister, a auntie, a friend, the one that make you laugh, the one that probably the one that beat up everybody, or, it was just a group, a camaraderie of love, of sisterhood, no matter the shade or whatever. But when I went to Dallas, everything was defined as your name and your skin color. Like Candy, I hate to call myself light skinned because I am not light skinned, but they would refer to me as light skinned, which I thought was weird. Like, and it was the dichotomy of how they viewed you. If you wasn't their shade of color, you were already the enemy. And I really feel that I was given the hardest time from, my peer groups, my people, my skin folks. And I couldn't understand that because I didn't come from that. And so that was my first personal experience with colorism. And I really went on to see how the elders contributed to this mindset, because they come from house and field. So the vision kept the divide kept from generation to generation. So, we've heard Oprah Winfrey state how, her mother made her sleep on the porch when they had to live with someone else. The lady of the house made her sleep on the porch because she said that she was too dark to come into the house. So I really feel that even with today's time, I have three girls, three different shades, and from fair skin to darker skin. And it was the elders that would sneak over to my children as if they had the same dad. And I'm like, if you want to know who was in my bedroom, you ask an adult. Adults talk to adults. Or they'll give the lighter skinned child a compliment versus the darker skinned child a compliment. Or it was even the divide from within, not even from the outside, but within. One child would get a birthday gift, another child would not. And I would have to send everything back and say, if you can't celebrate all, don't celebrate any.
Yeah.
So I really feel that this conversation is important because with all things brought to the open and exposed, we can start informing where the hurt and the trauma can have started and where it can end. And I think that as more as we are involved in changing our language, like even the little things, I better put a hat on before I be too dark, or I can't stay out too late in the sun because I'll get too dark. And the children are hearing that.
Mhm.
And I really feel that even the little things that we say that we've learned from along the way that we need to pick up on and stop. And I think the next generation after us would benefit from that conversation.
I want to say this because it's interesting that that we said I heard you, Candace, talk about the elders. Can you talk about the elders? And I think that's true to an extent. But I did a conversation. I'm a board member for the Elite Sisterhood here in Atlanta, Georgia, and so I was doing a workshop with their high school age girls, and I just pulled lyrics because we're talking about colorism, and this is a school that's in the inner city, and we were talking about colorism, and so I pulled rap lyrics, and I just want to read a few to you guys that you guys may know. Because I feel like when we think of it, I know for me, I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio, but grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and my mother's very fair skinned, so people looked at me very much like, "Where'd you come from?" And I also have the experience of being, depending on who I'm around, I could be considered light or I could be considered dark. In my home with my mother, who was fair skinned, and my little brother, who was just like her, and my father, I was definitely the dark. I was called, like, "You look like an African booty scratcher." And then I went to school later with black kids, and they were like, "You're not even dark." So a lot of it is your environment, right? But I was aware that in my house I ranked very low, but around some other kids I ranked higher. But I want to read you guys some rap lyrics because I think this is a part of the conversation. It's not just the elders; it's being perpetuated specifically through music.
Mhm.
So Lil Wayne has a lyric that says, "Eat a red bone like velvet cake, F a Negro, and eat the wedding cake." Wale says, "Despite living with more attention than light-skinned women," um, there's a Robin jeans with the wings, yellow bone on my team, trafficking them. You mean Future? Kendrick Lamar, "We're speeding on the 405 passing Westchester. The light skinned girls in all the little dresses. Good Lord." It keeps going. Like this Juicy J. "If you're talking about money, we can link up. Bad red bone, BI body inked up." Like that's what's happening in music, right? So when we hear the elders saying "stay out of the sun," of course, a young girl is going to want to stay out of the sun because Lil Wayne said, because Kendrick said, because Drake said, because. So I think it is being perpetuated today. It's not something that happened back in the day that we're still dealing with. It's still very much a part of where we are now. Were you guys aware? Are you guys aware of those lyrics? Because those are obviously, in
For
view.
sure. Like I love rap music, right? So, but most of the time when you hear references to like darker women, it's like a sexual use. it's not like this is
Mhm.
my the lighter skinned women, this is the girl that I'm taking with me, this is the
Yeah.
girl, and this is the girl that I will use for those purposes and discard.
Right.
And you see that perpetuated in storylines as well, like Power. The darker skinned girl she was never made love to. She was never courted. She was never given the fine dine, and she was always having sex from the back. She was always very abused, verbally abused, just, pushed aside. But then the mistress was courted, and she was made love to, and she had the romantic dinners. And you see that those storylines perpetuated in movies as well. Like, you don't have to give your best to the darker skinned person. That's saved for the more fair skin to
See,
different races are racially
and that
ambiguous looking.
and that actually, I'm sorry, you guys are hitting that thing, and I'm doing my best to be contained. Because
You're
look, I'm
good.
like,
Come on,
listen,
girl. You're good.
because look, okay, look, I don't have that coffee. Them babies asleep. Y'all have no idea. Okay, so check this out. Because you know what? Let me tell y'all something. Okay, I'm in Montgomery, where
Oh,
we throwing chairs, y'all. So you better believe I'm paying attention to colorism. Okay. So listen now. This country. Okay, I am called the people's activist in these streets. Okay, they call me the street prophet X, all of that, because I'm out there. I'm the one that get up on the ladder and get out there and don't have no problem talking, because I see what happened. I see what happened to us, and I see it from the root. Montgomery, Alabama is one of 4 places of a Confederate post where they launched what's his name, Robert E. Lee and all of them, where he set up the camaraderie for the whole fight for our rights to keep the South the same way, and so a lot of this perpetuation of what we're dealing with comes from that. The first movie to ever hit the media, since we're talking about reality TV, is Birth of a Nation. That is the first visual impression that they had of us on film, perpetuated by colonial Europeans in blackface. Okay, so we have Birth of a Nation that is ringing right after the defeat of the Civil War. All right, so now we go from the impression of everything that they got from us to where we have a Birth of Minstrel show, where we have still Europeans in blackface establishing how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to act. You got your ancient mamas and your, the I forgot the little baby names that they used to say for, I don't want to sound crude, but the little nigger babies they used to call us. And all the cartoons that we see out there, all the personality, they think we're loud and boisterous. This is how the white folk acted in blackface. So then we finally get black actors that put on blackface. And even though they were doing what they had to do to survive, they still put on and perpetuated, because we're on their land. This is what happened. The agenda continued to perpetuate. So now we have our own that's reinforcing this. And then when we finally do get to the point to where we actually have film, we have Good Times and the with JJ, and we still have the coonery that's still under there. We still have actors that do the wide eye thing, that goes all the way back to minstrel. So the establishment of African on film has been something well in the reps. Now here we are in 2023, where we don't have to go to the TV show, to the movie show. We don't have to go to somebody's house. Everything we have internet, we have cell phones, we have it right in our hand. So 2023, you have every shade of complexion and algorithm discrimination that's occurring now, where they're discriminating based on your race, color, gender, picture, profile in the computer. So this thing has evolved to where now the system has legs and is telling you what to do. It's not that these cast members or any other show is trying to intentionally highlight a person because they like them, they're great, they're wonderful. It goes with the narrative of everything. One of my favorite movies with one of the most sexiest casts for their time is Boomerang, baby. So when Eddie Murphy meets the first girl, or when you start seeing the introduction of the females, you had Robin Givens. She was darker than Halle Berry. So it's like you had this seduction, as Lee had pointed to, with the sexualization of the darker complexion. Even though she wasn't as dark as Grace Jones, the beautiful Grace Jones, she was still the darkest female attraction on the show. Then here comes Halle Berry, and now all of a sudden Marcus gets his mind right. He got it together. He quit his whole job. He can't breathe. So it's like this whole thing breaks down. So as I grew up, I put a little riddle to it, which we've all heard it. When you're white, you're right. When you're lighter, you get treated better. But when you're darker, it's harder. So that's a coin that I use to kind of measure the atmosphere where we are. And that's what I use with this show. When you are darker, based off of how we was treated on the plantation, and how we were treated as far as separating, when the Europeans slept with us and had a lighter child or a mulatto child, that child, even though he was still a Negro child or that child was still a Negra, they was doing jobs that were still less than, but they were still given a higher class within the African community. So plantation after plantation started to adapt this well before the movie of Birth of a Nation. So there's a system that moves for Black women. There's a system that moves for Black men. Some of us Black women that are darker in complexion deal with the nastiness that some of these men bring because they feel that they don't have to give us no reverence because of what is affiliated with us. If you are lighter, you could say, "Ooh, I can't stand you. You got a thought job." And that'll ring over just fine, like it's cute. But if you're darker, look, oh yeah, I'm talking that smack. Hit me up, Tomasha 1 in a million. Do me, okay? I'm about that life. I'm about that life. I'm about. Let me quit. But the darker, when you have outbursts as a dark one, she's bitter, she's mean, she's this, she's that, and it unloads. So it can't be cute. I think even a comment was made in one of the other broadcasts you were doing where we were discussing that as far as not attacking this woman. Janelle don't come for me, but as far as her situation that expired with Kat, where people was like, yeah, we kind of tolerated her attitude because she was pretty. And I was like, that's my whole point. You can tolerate her attitude and you don't even see it as threatening or nothing compared to if that same verbiage came out, such as when Lee stood up for Kira just by trying to defend the authenticity of her character, all of a sudden now she's out. So this whole white and Black and complexion has gone even to the point of, well, you're too dark to be talking white. But if you're light skinned, it's acceptable. It's expected. When a man, and I've been there where, we all in high school and everybody wants to be pursued. Every Black woman, almost the darker women, wanted to be chosen by the lighter to validate beauty. That ain't no different than I want master to see me. So this embedded, imprinted sociological psychology, this damage that has been done to us has gotten so to where it's in our very DNA. I have my children. I'm proud because I'm a mother. I'm 36 and a half at the time when I had my son. I'm looking like, oh my God, I made it through as a quote older age woman having children. And the first thing everybody sees is, oh, you got one of them. He gonna be fine. He gonna be killing them. Oh, look at his complexion. He like his daddy. And I'm looking like, well, I'm fine. I could use some chips in the soda pop. Like it was almost a breeder type mentality. And all of this comes from that foundation. And so now here we are, reality TV, and that's where things begin. Now we can opinionate these racist stereotypes, these profiles, and unfortunately, we can't see how that damages ourselves. I was 31, 32 when I locked my hair, not because I didn't want to ever do it before, but because I didn't want to be affiliated with all of the things that I was taught about being too radical as an African. And so this just, it made me feel like I lost a lot of time as we got to look at this in life, because this type of thing is what causes people, this is what creates a downfall. Like the Europeans are watching the show, they're laughing, they're like, oh, look at them, look at the niggas go. Them nigga gals, they getting a kick out of this on the extreme end. But community wise, we're so busy chopping each other up. We're missing the essence and the beauty of what we have before us. We're missing the connections to create Black empire, to rebuild that Black community, networking and so on. So it's a poison that we are not trying to acknowledge. Birth of a Nation is played in the White House. So I mean, what do you expect? Yeah, girl, I'm gonna stop. I had that coffee. I'm sorry.
It is definitely something that it's a poison that we don't want to talk about, but we've all felt. I think as Black women, wherever you've experienced it at whatever point of the spectrum you're on, you've experienced it in some way, from Tony to Tamasha. So I want to ask you guys, and first of all, if you guys are watching this, please share this conversation. Please like and share this conversation. I don't do a good job as a YouTuber of encouraging people to do that, but this conversation needs to be shared. So you guys, please You guys are great in the chat, but go ahead and like and share this so that other women can hear this. But I want to ask each of you, I'm going to start with Tony. Come back up to Tony. So we just recently saw a situation on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. And I really hate that it had to be Love and Hip Hop Atlanta because we got enough Atlanta. We just got, it's like the reputation of Atlanta is so negative, but it's we have so much more beauty going on here than people think about. But I want to hear everyone's perspective. And Camille, I would love for you to join if you're interested, because I just think it's important that we have people that are academically advanced in this area to be able to speak as well. So if you want to, I'll send you the link again. But I want everyone's opinion on the clip that we saw with Spice, who is a darker skinned woman, talking to Erica Mena, and Erica Mena then calling her a blue monkey. So at that point, Viacom decided to let Erica go. Now, before we get into everyone's opinion on the clip, I do want to state that Viacom is not owned by us, and that she was let go after the clip went viral. But that clip was filmed a while ago. So it's not like she was let go once she said it. She was let go once the public reacted to it. And it's probably gonna result in a lot of ratings for the show. But when I heard it, it just felt like I saw, oh my gosh, you guys, I have this. Oh, here it is. This is the dopest thing. One of the dopest things I own. So if you see
that is the bomb.
isn't that dope?
Yeah.
That is, I'm trying to line up with the camera. So this is one of my favorite movies is Gone with the Wind, even though it was, it's got a lot of issues. I love the writing and the storyline. But this is Mammy, and she is creating the cape. And I feel like it's the cape that a lot of us wear, but this is where it started, right? So when I heard Erica Mena, who is not Black, call a Black woman a blue monkey, I immediately had just an instinctive response to stand up for us and who we are. Erica is not Black, she is Latina. However, a lot of us have given Latinos a pass.
Yes.
Because our men find them beautiful and they want to be a part of the culture, and so they get a pass. But let's be clear that they're not African American, they're not Black. So anyway, I had a very strong reaction to it, but I want to hear how you all felt when you saw the clip, and if you feel like Viacom was acting on our behalf, or are we playing into this division even more? Tony? We can't hear you, babe.
I was offended because I felt like, a lot of times when you're angry, the things you say in anger are things that you really feel. And I felt like she was calling all of us a monkey. Some people said, well, they could excuse it because she brought up her son, but she really didn't talk about her son. The reference I saw was she was making that, you're not a good mother, and nothing that was said at that table I felt could warrant her taking things to that place, because it didn't matter what she said at that, I felt like nothing she said at the table warrant her calling her what she called her. And I feel like the only reason Viacom even allowed it to be seen was for ratings, and they did not do anything until it was backlash. A lot of us were offended, so they did something.
Lee?
I definitely thought her comment was definitely, inappropriate. I don't think there's any circumstance that could permit like such behavior. Calling somebody something that has so many it's a terrible racial slur. Like there's nothing that she could have ever said that would be like, okay, you can call this lady a monkey. Definitely, from Viacom's perspective, I think the sooner we realize that television and entertainment is meant to portray us in in a certain way. They're pushing that no matter what. Her getting fired, listen, they don't care anything about except if I can continue to show Black people in this manner. I can continue to, like, a racial slur like that, you've known way before. You went through editing, you went through cutting clips, you went through all of these things, and you still aired it just because you want to reinforce that. What did she what did that do? That reinforced that Erica Mena feels like she's higher than her. She feels like she's better than her in some sort of way, obviously reducing her to a monkey. So I feel like it's all just a part of the big game. So them firing her, I'm not really surprised, because I feel like they want to just keep the engagement going as long as possible. So people will continue to have conversations about if they fired her because of what she said, or if they fired her because we had a problem with it.
Right. Candy?
Wow, I love you said that, because that's a great point. How many hands that clip passed through before that aired? That wasn't live TV. And out of the heart, the mouth speaks. She spoke what she felt, and she said what she wanted, and she was given that platform to do so, because all those hands that passed through, it made it to TV, so we can react to it. And I think our reaction to a lot of things would have to start with what we buy. Like you mentioned, like rap lyrics. How many of us are still going to those concerts, who are purchasing, streaming the music? That we're voting for that with dollars, with our dollars. I started saying that when I seen the rap lyrics start changing from UNITY into, you a B, you a H, and you everything under the sun. And it's women that was jumping up and dancing like, oh, that's my song, that's my jam. And what happened? It perpetuated. And now we are voting with our dollars. The more we purchase it, the more they'll give it to us, the more we accept it. Some things we react to, some things we do not. So we're going to have to choose the battle and be consistent and persistent, and to stop it, because I felt if it started with words, it could end with words. We can change the narrative by having these conversations, by voting with our dollars, by being consistent with what we choose to fight for.
Tamasha?
Okay. First, I was disgusted because, again, in California, the Black and brown are united, because we got chased by the police the same. Okay, I was 5 when I got chased by a Nazi person with a swastika chasing me down the street. And it was the Black and the brown that ran together. So when I seen that, I was very disgusted for that one thing right there. Now, to go further into it, I'm shocked at her ignorance, because I don't like nobody dumb. I don't care how fine you are. Okay, you can't sit up here and make such a naive and ignorant statement, not understanding the history of Mexico. Not everyone in Mexico, Mexico as a state, even when Texas was cut in half, did not support slavery. That was the reason why back in 1826 through 1832, they had so many issues with making Texas a colonial state, because they did not want to receive the African labor as slave forced labor. They told them to come over and be free. So for us to go from that extreme of relation, not saying that all of Hispanic didn't deal with this as far as the Hispanic region, because some of them were under British colonial control, but as a actual state, they stood for us. So to actually have someone now come out and say you a monkey and do the monkey sound, to short answer it, yes, Ari, shout out in the chat, Afro-Latina are acknowledged, but it seems, not to go too far off, the Afro-Latina only wants to be the Afro part when it's convenient, because Jennifer Lopez was Afro when she was dating P. Diddy. So you had to be old enough to look. Don't play with me. I told y'all how old I am, baby. I've been in these streets. So when you okay, so when you sit up here, you all pop locking, and you do even Pink. Pink did the same thing. She got voted, got the record and everything, and then dipped right on the other side, came out with country. No problem. But that's the pattern. So this Afro-Latina, Asian, even Kamala Harris. No disrespect, don't put the feds on my phone. But as soon as she got VP, and got voted in as vice president, the announcement went from the first African-American to the first Asian African-American. I'm like, you just got to do it. Tiger Woods the same. He was our Tiger until everything went down. Now he Tiger with Asian. I'm like, you know what? So this ignorance and how they like to use our black card In other words, how they like to speak on their own ancestors, you know what I'm saying, and that African persuasion in there, that's their abuse. But when you open up your mouth and you want to say something like that, it's on us to take the knowledge that we know, the truth that we know, to take the conviction of the Hebrew word that they stole, to speak from the Spirit of God that He put in us and correct that. You check that. You know what I mean? Because you don't let nobody release that kind of spirit. And then you want to go as far as to making a monkey sound. So what if I asked her for her green card? Would that have been offensive? Would I have asked her? You know what I mean? Like, we can go blow for blow, and that's not nice. And that's the area that you don't want to go to. But the fact that somebody had the audacity, that's ignorance. She need to read a history book and understand. She need to take an ancestry test. They got them on sale where they can tell her where she looked like and where she stand on the spectrum. Okay. All right. I'm good.
Let me ask you this. And this is for everybody, including the chat, because we know that you mentioned J-Lo, right? And we know
Yes.
that, boy, J-Lo is Puerto Rican, right? And I understand, in New York, there's a relationship between Blacks and Puerto Ricans. But a lot of times there is, and even in our own race, there's a privilege, because this conversation was about colorism. So even if we're including them, if you want to include yourself as Afro-Latina, then you have to be aware of the fact that colorism is an issue. And there's a privilege that you have by being included, but not really a part of it in that way, right? So your
That's right.
skin tone gives you privilege. And if someone like Erica Mena in the Black community, her privilege is at a certain level, right? When she's around other Dominicans, it may not be that high. So of course you're going to get, so there's an opportunity to come over here and be worshiped, but go over there and you'll be average. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So it's like,
exactly.
It's like, at what point do we say we're going to call you on it? You like coming over here because of the perks that it gives you. A lot of men worship that look, that Erica, Jennifer Lopez, everything that's different than their mothers, as Lee mentioned earlier. But so you want to claim it when it comes to hanging out with the men and being cool, but when it comes to interacting with the women, then all of a sudden it's like, she's a monkey, she's this, she's that. How do we deal with that in our community? Like, how do we make sure that if you want to come over here and be a part of our culture, not just Erica Mena, the Kardashians are huge perpetuators of this, right? Come over here, you cornrow your hair, you doing this. And a lot of us are so excited to welcome them in. Like, we just love it. But then when it comes down to it, and it's woman to woman, it's like, well, no, I know I'm preferred over you, right? But I'm a part of your culture when it benefits me. So how do we, as Black women, how do we make sure that there's respect across the board, specifically when we're talking about these shows? Erica saying those things. There's been comments on Real Housewives. I mentioned Real Housewives of Potomac, where you have Ashley, who is a biracial, beautiful girl, basically making statements. And she acknowledged that she knows that, there is an issue with it, right? So what do we do as Black women to make sure that we're standing up for ourselves and we are speaking out? We're not allowing ourselves to be silenced because we're afraid of the backlash. I'm gonna start with you, Candy.
I really feel to me, it's like, when you're working in the office and they may have racial jokes or sexualized jokes, someone's telling jokes and you laugh at it, right? By you laughing at it, you're giving them permission to continue doing it. You don't check them, you don't create boundaries, you don't tell them what you stand for. I really feel that we have to stop giving the permission for them to perpetuate whatever they're perpetuating. Give them the standards, the boundaries, things that you respect and things that you will not tolerate, and be consistent with that. Some can't get a pass. And when you talk about this, it just really makes me think about all the other conversations that we have, and that we have to preference that by saying Black and brown, or we didn't went from. I used to work in vital statistics. We didn't went from. I think when I started vital statistics, we were Negroes. Then we went from Negroes to Black. Then we went from Black to African American. I remember getting cursed out by some lady who just gave birth, and the lady was saying, you know, be this, that, another. My baby isn't Black; she's African American. Well, at that time, New Orleans hadn't made African American ethnicity. Now we went from African American to people of color. At what point we're going to stand on what we're going to stand on, and why we have to keep apologizing for, number one, who we are, and number one, having the conversations that we need to have. Because where I come from, family eats first. Mm-hmm. And where I come from, you're less than an infidel if you don't take care of your home first. So take care of home first. And it's okay to tell others how they should come into your household. If you feel they need to take off their shoes before they come into your household, you tell them that. You tell them what they can and cannot do. And you in culture, in retail, in the world, we vote again with our dollars. If we run in, if we're the first to buy Skims, well, they go keep advertising it where we watch TV or where we at. So if we stop buying it, they'll stop advertising it to us. Mm-hmm. So we have to be consistent, speak up, and I really feel that culture will start refining and defining that narrative of what we will and will not tolerate.
Lee?
I definitely want to piggyback off what you're saying about Skims. I think the biggest power play for us is to realize that as Black women, we literally set the trends for everything. We set the trends. So if we change the direction in which we're going, we change how we show up in the media. Like, you can't get me to act a fool on TV. There, even if there's a discussion to be had outside of here, you cannot get me to act a fool on TV, because I know that's what you want to feed people about Black women. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to repost the Kardashians. If Black women realized the Kardashians would have never had a wave had we not been so like, oh, Kim, it's us. The power is within us. So many people try to tell us otherwise. But look at everything. We literally are the blueprint. We set the trends. So if we realize our own power and start moving differently, we can shift a lot. But we are so asleep and so far out of love with ourselves and just not really realizing who we are in the society that I feel like it's a big task. But I can take care of this one. Yeah. Right here, and I can encourage whoever else you come in contact with to show up as a queen at the end of the day. Like, don't be what they want you to be. Don't continue to reinforce those things.
Mm-hmm. Tony?
I agree with everything that was said, and even when it comes to it, since we brought up the Kardashians, it's not just the Skims. I believe it's All American. It's the makeup line. You got to be conscious of whose products you're buying and who's making those products and how they portray us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's true. It is Kylie's lips and the all. It's all of it, and this is not to down the Kardashians, but I'm just saying that you have to look at the marketing strategy, and we are used so often when it comes to cosmetics, when it comes to politics, when it comes to beauty, when it comes to fashion. We are used in every area to get things going and to cause them to be on trend, and then afterwards, they move on and it becomes a very different story. Tamasha, I want to ask you, because I want this to be solution driven, right? I want us to talk about this, but I also want us to come up with some things that we can do. I love what Lee said. She can control her, but what she's doing when she's on Ready to Love is she is standing up for herself, but she's also representing a large population, and she's also teaching a large population. So I want us to talk, to kind of turn the discussion to discuss what we can do as Black women. I'm so tired of seeing the fighting and seeing the things that we saw in that Love and Hip Hop clip, in these clips of all these other reality shows where you see women fighting. I was even saddened to see the behavior on Ready to Love. We've talked about that on this channel a lot. And how do we, as Black women who have a responsibility and understand the strategy and the setup, how do we start to change that for ourselves so that we're not feeding into it ourselves? We're starting to change the way things show up for our daughters and for our younger women.
I will say first, I'm going to definitely say first off, Christal, thank you so much for this conversation. These ladies, and this is the bomb. This really got me going over here. I forgot I was on the panel. I think that one of the first things, in my opinion, would need to be to first stop and look in the mirror. There's so much identity that we have lost, period. Like we're in 2023. This has been well over 400 years of dealing with the stripping of who we are. And we need to take a moment and look in the mirror and thank God for what we have survived with and what He's still given us in spite of everything. We have to thank Him for our hair, for our face, for our skin, for our melatonin, all the variations of that, and what He's chosen to do in our lives. Once we start to identify and start to say, okay, I am somebody, it doesn't matter what is going on outside. I know who I am, like how Lee referred to, and even Tequila even mentioned in one of our conversations that they both have that in common, where they've been watered way before they walked out that door. Their village watered them. So a lot of our work is going to be overwhelming, but I really think this could happen if we just start first at the door, look at ourselves, reflect on us, and as head as households, start to water our babies. We know what's going on outside. Like outside of this show, they're going to go put in job applications. They're going to go apply for college. They're going to need to communicate with our law enforcement. They're going to be communicating with peers and their future husbands. So we have to make sure that we build that esteem within them and that we can communicate that visually, audibly as well. Financially, the power of that Black dollar ain't nothing like it to pull it back. We have Korean and other nationalities that have occupied our streets with hair that they chopping off their own heads and selling to us for $100 a pack that we put on our head and still get called the nastiest things on earth. And so we have to switch that. We do have Black businesses that are trying to boom. The pandemic did impact us, but we have to get back to supporting our Black businesses and building up our Black community. Um, I think that as a Black culture of women, we have to heal as women. And you brought it, I'll mention because I don't really speak too much on it. But as far as the tension on the show, you got beauty upon beauty upon beauty with the women, all this energy that's coming from somewhere. Okay. And everybody is trying to look and be affirmed. You have the power of the cameras, the power of the media. You have 19 other people looking at you. And whatever it is that was told to you in your ear when you put that makeup on and walked out that door, that's what you believe is gospel. So now we run into these ego collides, or these I call them bra fights, where we're constantly bumping chests because we want somebody to acknowledge that we're beautiful, so much so to where we're like, you're gonna lose, I'm gonna win. I don't care what I gotta call you, I don't care what I gotta treat you. And that part is where we have to deal with, because 80% of what we deal with each other comes from the product that you created within yourself in your house.
Yeah.
So when we see that tension on show, to me, that was no different than any workplace argument I've ever seen, break room fight, some Facebook fight, and that comes from the same place of that person not understanding who they are in themselves, in this world. And and nobody's going to be able to fix that for you. You're going to have to really come to a place within yourself and be grateful for what God has given you and like it and accept it. Like this is a real self reflection thing. You have to really sit down and dig in yourself. When you have people that set themselves to say to someone, you're a blue monkey, you're African booty scratcher, you yellow like a highlighter, or you act like a white girl, and they say it with such staff. It makes me wonder which one of their ancestors said that back in the day. That tell me where you came from on the side of that thing. And that's just a reinvigoration and a resurrection of that spirit that is steady trying to be pushed today. So there has to be some, I would say, self-healing at just number one. I'll start there.
Let me ask you, Tony, because I will say for myself, I grew up in a community that was very colorist, right? Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the 80s. And guys would ask me, why don't you look like your mom? Do you have a light-skinned friend with long curly hair, right? So that was that when you're young, you're trying to figure out how you can be attractive. And when you hear that, it is hurtful. So I'm assuming that young girls growing up today, it's a lot different because at least on television we see more people than Holly Berry, and you see more diversity, but there's still very specific guidelines to what's considered attractive. So I had to learn for myself to appreciate my brown skin, and that was a process that I went through personally. I talked about it a little bit in the essay that I wrote called Color Struck, because coming from a mother that was very fair skinned and a family that was very filled with, fair skin, green eyes, curly hair, it was difficult for me to find beauty in myself. But I did that. And like I said, it was a process. And by the time I got to college, I had, really found what I had really found confidence in Christal and her brown skin and, curvy body and everything else. But that was a process. I want to ask each of you what that process was like for you, because I think it's different for every woman. And I think that it's important that we share that so that women aren't walking around feeling like, I don't really like looking at myself in the mirror, or I feel like when I'm put next to a woman who's fair skinned, I'm automatically not going to be considered attractive. How do we fix that? How do we talk to young women and give them the confidence in themselves to understand that they are beautiful as they are? Tony, what was that process like for you?
Listen, I'm 58 and I'm still going through the process.
58 where?
You're beautiful.
Girl, I go, 58 where?
Gorgeous.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I am still, just last week I turned 58. I am still going through the process. And when I hear you say, light skin was so beautiful, and I grew up seeing that because I have fair skin. When I say acceptable, they have more color than I did. I was never the one that was pretty. My parents were darker. My aunt used to model, but she was brown skin, and my grandmother, she loved all of us. We came in all shades, so she said, "I'm gonna take my children," and she took me. I didn't want to go, but I didn't want to tell her no. But when I got there, they like, okay, that's nice, you brought her because she's your granddaughter, but they didn't talk to me. They were more interested in my other two cousins. When you get older, things are not as important as they were back then. I've evolved. I've had relationships. I've been divorced. My son, believe it or not, conversations that we have. He just put on Facebook, for example, I would like to wish my mother, my beautiful mother, a wonderful birthday. To me, that was like, wow, my son thinks I'm beautiful. So I'm still going through the process. It's nice to see a lot of young ladies with albinism evolving, but I think it starts with what was said earlier. It starts at home. You have to instill things in your children. When I was growing up, no one, my parents didn't make me feel like I was different. My father was very protective, but my family believed in wholeheartedly, you're just like everybody else, and that's how we're going to treat you. Mm-hmm. But when I got out into the real world, I wasn't like everybody else, and that's not how I was treated. Right. So it made me feel, again, even with my brother, to hear your brother say to his coworkers, "Oh, my sister's adopted, that's why we don't look like each other." That's a painful thing to deal with. And again, you just have to reinforce with your children. I believe it starts, knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. Even when we talk about our history as a whole, and our history, how it's the massacres where things were burned and things were erased. We as a people have done and built and enjoy. People enjoy a lot of things today that were invented by us, and we don't know about it, and we don't learn about it in school. And I made a point. The things that I learned outside of school, I made a point to share that with my son when he was young. And I believe that's how it starts. When I look at the Jewish culture, they teach their children everything about their history, good, bad, ugly, and different. And I believe that's where you have to start. Because if we don't teach our children that they're beautiful, they're great, they can do anything, can accomplish anything, and they have no reason to feel inferior to anyone else because of looks or the shade of their skin or anything like that, that's where it starts.
Let me ask you this, Tony, before, and I want everybody to answer this question. This is from Lex Royal. Does growing up in a family that loves you and your skin, does that help block against the colorism one would experience when they go out into the world? Do you believe that if there is reinforcement and confidence is built at home, do you think that helps when you go out and you do hear the negativity that's going to come from, from children and even other people in the world?
Well, words hurt. They hurt. No matter how much your parents love you, no matter how much they try to prepare you, you're gonna hear and see and have things happen to you that hurt. I think when those things happen, because if you're loved at home and you're supported at home and you have all those things, it helps you be resilient. You know, it might hurt, but I don't stay there. I can dust myself up and move on. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter how many great things people tell you about yourself. You can have 1,000 people give you a compliment. But if one person comes and says something that's hurtful and painful, you're going to remember that one thing more than you remember those 1,000 beautiful accolades. And that's just the nature of the beast, I believe.
That's right.
You know, and I also believe, and I practiced this because I had a great relationship with my dad, and I modeled my relationship with my son. You also have to, you're not your child's friend, but you want them to be able to come to you and tell you anything, because a lot of times, I know of people who have children that have committed suicide and they had no idea, and I'm not saying it was their fault, but you always want to try to keep the doors of communication open, so if something does hurt them, they're not embarrassed or ashamed to come to you. I think sometimes we have to be transparent, and I was. Some things I didn't have to be transparent about because of visualization, but other things I was very candid. It was age appropriate, and I feel that has helped. I only have one child, so I can only speak on that, but I think it has helped him when he's out in the world, because we talked about, I don't want to embarrass you. Are you embarrassed by me? And believe it or not, one day he told me, he said, well, mommy, I know you're white. And I'm like, but I'm not white. And I had to explain to him, we come in all shades, from a little bit lighter than mommy to, I showed him a picture of my great grandfather. He was very dark skinned. And, I'm like, well, who told you that I was white? He said, my dad. And I was shocked, because at the time we were still together. I'm like, why would you tell him that? And he just said, and I couldn't be mad, he said he was asking questions and I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
So, I just believe it starts in the home.
Lee?
I definitely think it starts at home. And I think, like, raising children and stuff, like my nieces and nephews, I'm always super duper careful about what I'm pouring into their cup. I think a lot of times in Black community, a lot of moms tell their daughters, for whatever reason, she's jealous of you. And it might just be that your daughter is not that nice. So I think that it's important that we pay attention to, like, what we're teaching them, because that next generation is coming up with these same exact problems because we taught her that her sister was her enemy from the very beginning, saying she's jealous of you because your ponytail's long. She's jealous of you because her hair is nappy. That's not true.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily true. So I think that we have to be mindful about what we pour into the children that we have access to. As far as let me answer Lex's question. She said, do I think that, having a family that loves you in your skin, does it change? I can honestly say I do not know what I would do without my family. Like my dad, I'm so big on how I want like love to look for me because my dad, when I get dressed to go to like the school dance or whatever, my daddy is making the biggest deal. He is like, I don't know what they're gonna do when you get there. like, like he makes the biggest deal about it. So I didn't have to go outside to look for that validation or approval of if anybody says anything to me, oh, I'm not qualified because of my skin or whatever. That's fine because you're ignorant.
Yeah.
Like that's okay. Not only did he, like love me, and then my mom also always tell me how beautiful I am, and she will block anyone if they try to compliment my sister who is very fair and leave me out or say, "Oh, she's so pretty to be dark." She would correct them and say, "No, she's just pretty." That's the end of it. That's the end of the story. So I've always had that. And my brothers, I'm grateful for them as well, even though they prepare me in a different way, like, as far as like making jokes and stuff like that. I'm like, nobody talks about me worse than my brothers. Like, so when I come outside, it's okay. You don't really have any ammo now. So I definitely think that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And to see the statistics and stuff that are like, oh, parents are only spending like 35 minutes or less than that time with their kids is really scary because where do they get that from? What are they being filled with other than like TikToks?
Mm-hmm.
And those things, which is crazy. So my dad made me sit down and he made me watch all these documentaries about Black people. And I used to be like, can I please get up? But he would make me sit there to make me understand who I am.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a huge difference on how you let what people have to say about you affect you and how you show up in the world as well. Because just being on reality TV, I've been called ugly. They said I think I'm all that because of my body. I'm like, and that's crazy because I've never said anything like that. Or I've never done anything like that. If you see me posting a fitness video, well, I have a business with a lot of clients and I'm a gym owner. So therefore, that's what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I reject, like, I'm big on, like, I look at my body as like a tank and I get to determine what I store in there. And I only want to fill it with beautiful and positive things. So all those people who have negative stuff to say, I just block it out. Like, no, thank you. Like, I don't want to own that. I don't want to even entertain that or anything like that. So I think it definitely, I definitely think it makes like a huge difference on like your upbringing. And if you were shown that love, because you go outside with a different level of confidence when you know that you that girl.
Absolutely.
Right.
Candy?
Oh, I believe everything what she said, and even what she said earlier, how her family prepared her with different things that people said. But just like anything, when you get filled at home, you don't go out hungry, and when you go out hungry, you bite on anything, and people start to fill you with their narratives, their beliefs, and their descriptions of what it should be. But if you go out knowing who you are and whose you are, you don't have to wait for somebody to define you. And I really feel that those who are hurting from those narratives of yesteryear, those ill-spoken words, yes, the fact is, those people have said those mean things to you. But the truth is, how do you define yourself? I myself went on a 1 year journey because people would say things like, oh, you just need to love yourself. You just need to love yourself. And I was like, love yourself. What does that look like? Is it more than just a spa day, getting your nails done, getting your hair done? What is loving yourself? And you have to learn to love yourself, mind, body, and spirit. Purge from yesterday's pains, hurts, and desires from all time, space, and dimension. You have to identify with the words that were said to you and get that out of you. I believe we all have books inside of us. All of them does not have to be published. Even if you're writing those ill-spoken words on a paper and burn it sounds so rudimentary. But if you would take those words and burn that on the paper, just the symbolism of that being released from your body, that weight from your body, from that heavy weight of words that you use to maneuver in the world as. I know one lady who said that she used to wash her hands in Clorox because her hands were too dark, and did not knowing that it was making her hands darker. But I really feel that we maneuver in the world a certain way based on the words that has been spoken to us by a person in authority, a bully, a complete stranger, a primary parent, someone we loved or respected. And of course, those words stuck to us. What was that saying? Uh, Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt. But that's a lie. Words do hurt and they linger. And if they linger too long, it causes infestation. And that infestation manifests into things. It could manifest into disease, dis-ease in our emotions. And we call it things like narcissism or bipolar or even physical disease that happens, but it started in our emotions. And all of that have to be cared to. And I'll go back to what I said earlier. It starts in the home before it spills out into the household. We have to love ourselves, prepare our children so that they don't go into the street empty. And when they are confronted with the ill-spoken words, they have a defense mechanism to fall back to. My mama said I'm beautiful. My daddy said I'm the apple of his eye. I'm the lady put down there. She's put Black Beauty, what her daddy told her. So I really feel that yes, we prepare our children to go out into the world and have that place of refuge for them to come back home to be free to talk to us about what happened during the day, and we fill them back up, to go back out into the world. And I just really feel that, it all started with words, and, we have the power to change it with words and that narrative from one household to the next.
Tamasha.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just taking all these nuggets in. Look, this is wonderful. My experience with that, or my place, how I got here, I didn't have a two-parent household. I'm the village baby, aka the village people. I had aunts and uncles, and those people that told me I was beautiful. My mom and everyone knew I was beautiful in their head, but I didn't get much vocalization of that. The
Yeah.
people that I heard that from were from people external of me, even though they were family. Now, what I did hear a lot from my mom was I was smart, intelligent, and all the brain power in the world. I was strong. But as you guys were speaking, I was kind of going down memory lane because she's not in the earth no more. She's been gone since I had my son, and so it actually reminded me of the age I was called beautiful. I was 30 years old when I heard my mom call me beautiful for the first time,
Wow.
and I broke down. Yeah, I had took a picture on Facebook. I did a Caesar's haircut and went blind and all this, and did my whole little 30s. I'm grown. And she seen that picture and it surprised me because I thought she was gonna talk to me about my hair. But she was like, "You were beautiful." And I never heard those words come from her to me.
Mm,
Now I went out into the world hungry, and I went looking for that. And I went looking for that in men and women, tearing this world up to affirm that I know who I was. But
mm,
that was I wouldn't recommend that path for anyone because my hunger couldn't be satisfied.
mm,
My biological father I've never met, and I'm born 17 minutes before his birthday, and he's alive. But we I didn't have that direct pouring, so that's where kind of God comes in. We was raised Muslim like, so it's like my whole inference was on well, this is what God said. But I mean I didn't look in a mirror as far as to look at myself to adorn myself
mm,
until I was standing in my Air Force uniform at 18. That's how bad my conscience was because I was always thinking about everything people said. My initials are TV, Tamasha Brown. I was called Tar Baby, the Blob, the Black, all kind of things that you can imagine besides African Booty Scratcher. Always even though I never saw him at the time, I hadn't seen him, my dad, but you got big lips, you got this, you got his this. So it was always cutting myself up. So I never had beautiful come out of me until I heard it really when my mom said I was 30 when I was 30, but it didn't come out of me really until probably I want to say 34, because that was really when I had a soul cleansing with my biological father. I had a real Antoine Fisher moment. People calling me saying they're my brother and sisters. They were in Atlanta. I
Mm.
drove there and met them, and that whole thing just blew me away
Yeah.
because they were telling me how I was and all this. And so it even though I knew on the outside I had the beauty and I had everything that could check mark out, I didn't have a soul connection or I didn't identify. And it wasn't until that moment when I was like, I am beautiful. Like I felt like the fire of everything I had been through had beautified me.
Mm.
And that's what I took from that. So yeah,
Mm.
it was really going inside. I didn't have, that's why I kind of listen to everyone and I'm like, I had wonderful men and stepfathers and all, but I didn't have that home base that you hear us preaching about.
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm.
yeah, yeah,
You
it
just
really, yeah.
what you said was so powerful. The fire of everything I have gone through had beautified me. That I'm like
Yeah,
blown away.
that
That is
that did me.
so powerful.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I had to. Yeah, I came out. Tamasha came through. I remember that day like it was nothing, and I took a picture on Facebook to mark it because I had gained 268 pounds.
Mm.
I used to run 5 miles a day, very physical, but I was carrying so much weight in my soul that I
Mm.
had gained so much weight and didn't even know it because I'm so active. I was heavy. I was heavy in my soul.
Yeah.
With trying to, women telling me what I look like as far as beautiful. Okay, so that's cool. Men telling me what I should look like. I'm beautiful. Okay, that's cool. And then I need to be beautiful. Okay, that's cool. Work, I got to be beautiful. And I was just cutting myself up so many different ways. And God had to break me down. And when that fire, when He pulled me out like Elijah Branch, when He pulled me through that thing, I came out like this, and I was like, I see now, and like the scales was broken, and so thank God, that happened.
Wow, that's
Hmm.
that
That's a
that that
beautiful
was. I
thing.
gotta sit with that because that's beautiful. Also, what you said, Candy, about all of you all, I'm just so thankful that um, that all four of you agreed to be a part of this conversation. Every single one of you had such depth to offer this, so I'm thankful for that. Candy, you said if you are hungry, you go out and you will chew on anything. You'll bite on anything.
Hmm.
That is so powerful. And I just want to say to women that are watching, um, if you didn't have the benefit of having a family that validated you, because many of us didn't, right? My father was a drug addict and was
Yeah.
not a part of my life, right? Um, my mother did the best that she could, but she was, my mom was on the other side of colorism. So she was extremely fair skin with hair down to her behind. So a lot of darker skinned girls were mean to her. So she did not like darker skinned people because she had been bullied. And so then she has this little girl that's brown skin with black girl hair, and she didn't know what to do with that. So saying all that to say I didn't get some of the validation I would have needed at home. So I had to learn how to give it to myself. And thank God I have a father above that I could go to. So I just
Hmm.
want to make sure because this is not something that we can fix, or at a certain age, you're an adult and you're over it. Like Tony said, at 58 years old, she's still evolving. And hopefully this conversation is blessing all of you as well as you're blessing other people that are listening. Um, but I just want to make sure that if you're listening and you still are on your journey as we are, that you can start to be that for yourself. What Tamasha explained just now, that the fire that all of us goes through can beautify us. I also want to say that, one thing my mother did teach me, because she was always considered beautiful. She heard that all the time. Actually, she was bullied because of that. You think you're cute, you think you're so much better, whatever. But she would always tell me, Christal, pretty is as pretty does. And one of the things that Lee mentioned earlier, I think we have to change as Black women. We have to stop putting so much emphasis on external beauty. One of the things I honestly believe is that we all have a measure of beauty, right? Beauty is not exclusive. We've been lied to. We've been told that beauty looks a certain way, but beauty comes in so many shapes, sizes, colors, textures. And the only way that you can tap into your beauty is to focus on the inside, and that beauty radiates without, right? And so when we're telling girls, oh, she's just mad because she's not cute as you, we're creating negativity. And you see that mean girl attitude, and you can see a girl that is beautiful. A lot of these women on reality television physically are beautiful, but the energy and the poison that comes out because they've been told you're jealous or she's not as good or all, and it creates a very ugly essence, right? And so I think that what I would say, you know, I know we need to get ready to wrap up because I'm very thankful and appreciative of the time that you all have volunteered to be here, but I think that if we can start to retell our children and our young people, we can start to redefine that narrative as opposed to saying she is angry or she is jealous. Let's tell her or show her how to be beautiful for herself. And
That's
like I said, pretty is as pretty does. And so it's not so much about your hair or your skin color or your shape or your, you know, the texture of your features. It's really about how you treat people, how you respond when
That's
people
it.
treat you a certain way, right? I hate this whole idea that we have now of when she goes low, I'll go lower.
Mm.
Why are we as women encouraging our young women to be that way? Because there's no bottom on it. There's no bottom on it.
Mhm.
So when you see someone who is presenting themselves and they're physically attractive, but as soon as someone says something, they are so insecure that they respond with venom. That really shows that there's a lot of insecurity and ugliness there. So I think we have to start to redefine how we talk to little women, young women, right? As opposed to focusing on negative, because words are powerful. So when you're telling her how to deal with something by blaming and by hating on another young woman, you're not empowering her. You're just teaching her how to do that and perpetuate that.
Girl,
So
say that again. Say
I,
that again. You're not empowering her. Say that one more time. You are not empowering
you
her.
are not
Okay.
empowering her. So I would say that we should take a page out of Lee's book. When I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, she said, well, I said, well, Lee, where you been? Because we don't get to see you as much as we would like. And she said, well, I don't give them what they want for TV, because when she was confronted in a situation that was very uncomfortable, instead of going lower, she remained in her energy, and that let me
Mm-hmm.
know that she really does. There's no insecurity there. She's confident in who she is. That's what we should be celebrating. That's what we should be highlighting. And that's why we
Right.
said to her, we gave her flowers and said, we appreciate you showing up. Showing up as a woman is not trying to figure out how I can cut another woman down. It's and if that's her energy, God bless her, but that doesn't change my energy. And so I just wanted to say that I am so full tonight because of what everyone has been so honest and everybody has been so transparent. And I think that's the only way that we will be able to really make an impact. This may not be for everybody, but for the people that are tuning in and for the women that are listening, I want you to know that there's never a point in life where you're too far gone. You can start to restructure and recategorize yourself wherever you are at whatever age, at whatever stage. If you've done some things or been a part of that negativity, you don't have to stay there. You don't have to
right.
stay there. And so I think that I like to end things with solutions. And I think that's one of the most powerful ones that we can do. That strength is not going lower. Michelle Obama said that when they go low, we go high. And for a while, people liked that. But then we turned it around and said, well, if she going lower, I'm going to hell. That's not what that affects our young women. And that's what we're seeing on television. So I just want to commend Lee for that example. And if they don't want to show it, we need to support it. And that's what we're
Right.
doing tonight.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you so much
Beautiful.
for that. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm so happy to know that there are a group of women that they get it. And that's I'm not blind to that at all. People have been messaging me and all of that. So I'm just really, really grateful for the opportunity to be here with you guys today. And just remember that you get to define your truth. Don't try to live in any box that people try to put you in. Like you are the co-author along with God. You are writing this thing, so you are in control.
Absolutely.
Right. Right.
Last minute words from everybody. Tony, and then Candy, and then Tamasha.
Um, Tamasha, you made a very valid point when you said you didn't come from a two family, your family dynamic. And when I said home, home is what your home base is. I
Mhm.
know when I speak of parents, I didn't. My parents divorced. I didn't live with both of them, but my father was present. Myself, I raised my son by myself since he was 3. He'll be 24. I want to say thank you to every one of you because all of you have blessed me tremendously. I'm thankful for being allowed to be a part of it, and it just was a great experience. And I hope that we've helped just one person, and it's been all worth it.
Candy.
Wow. Tamashi Tamashi said something that was very valid when she said the weight of the emotions. That's a very real thing. Sometimes we try to fight our weight with diet and exercise, but it's really the emotions that we have not addressed. And there's a certain thing that's called cellular trauma. That there's traumas that's housed in your cells that has to be released. It has to come up and out. That's emotions, energy in motion. And so you need to release that anyway that you see fit, if it's spiritual, if it's meditation, whatever it is, but you're not built to carry that weight. You have to release it. And I'm from a place where God said, my yoke is easy and my burdens are light. If that's your
Say it.
spiritual belief, exchange yokes with Him. And I just truly want to say that you have the ability to refine and define what love is and loving yourself. You can't give something that you don't have. You can't teach something that you haven't experienced. So start with, like someone said earlier, start with the person in the mirror. Start refining and defining what loving yourself is. And once you have it inside, you have it to give, and you're able to give, and one light can illuminate the world. We could change the narrative. And the one more thing, in Hollywood, there's this narrative of what one black person won't do. They say, okay, we'll just get another black person to do it. So we have to find a standard that we are willing to stick to so that they can't continue to pit one person against another, whether that's in media, music, social media, men hating women. I remember first getting on YouTube and learning about the black man against the black woman. How did that war break out? How can that continue? So we would have to change the narrative, starting at home first, starting with self first, and then we be it to give it. And that's what I wanted to share.
Tamasha.
Girl, I forgot the whole question. I'm like, look, look, because I'm sitting up here thinking, I'm like, listen, because my mom, I testify big just so people can know, what I'm saying? Listen, I don't know what people may think of me. I kind of got jumped in this world, answering the phone and talking with my homegirl, turned into an interview, turned into a broadcast, and now I'm sitting up here with y'all. So I'm like, look, so I don't know nothing else but just to be honest, because I've had the privilege, like many of us, to watch the show, and these people opened up that part of their lives. So I'm like, let me go ahead and put it out here. So just my mom did crack from my age 5 to 23. In the last 15 years of her life, I had her. Now my parents were teenage parents. They didn't know no better. 15, 16. So that foundation was one thing. Then the addiction and the damage of things that was going on in her soul is what kept her to where she loved me, but we could she by the time she really got around to really showering me the way I knew she wanted to, even though she did, but it could have went more. She was gone. She died the day I found out I was pregnant with my son. Uh, so carrying that. Now, when I made what reference to the weight, if I had not healed, because I'm trying to say this now, I guess I have to just say it because I don't want to rock no boats, but I mean this for somebody. I just feel like it's on my soul to say, because I don't talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's emotional for me. It's very deep for me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had not shook that weight, my children wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have survived my mother's passing. I wouldn't have, nothing wouldn't be here. I had to let it go. I I was watching Antoine Fisher the movie, and that's when it hit. I had to let it go. I could not hold it no more. I couldn't hold it no more. I couldn't do it no more. I couldn't keep looking for myself anymore. I just could not do it no more.
Yeah.
And I had to, and I kept looking for myself in God and looking for him. And I see myself in the word, but I wanted to feel me and see me tangible. I wanted a connection. I wanted a sign and a wonder. I needed to feel it. And I didn't realize that he was pressing me from 30 to 34 to deal, because at 36, my mom died, and then I had a baby. And then 39, I had my daughter, Tamasha Jr., and then their father died. And then a year after that, then my grandmother last year on the same day as my mother. And I'm just like, God, you giving it to me. But the human body, that's why I love Lee and what you're doing with fitness, because it is biblical. The health is a profit for us. It is a ministry to us. And so if he had not taken me and brought me, healed me spiritually, which broke the strongholds that was developing in my molecular body, I would not have been able to even handle the
Yeah.
the earth weight, which the Bible calls satiety. And so I really had to, ladies, we cannot be ready to love if we don't deal with this. We've got to deal with this. Take these nuggets, watch these videos, pull each from each of us. You got 5 trees here plus more videos. Christal, you got Dr. Camille in the chat. That woman is just, oh my God, phenomenal. You got Lex. I mean, these are people I have met just on the phone, just in conversation, just in, like, high and by, and I could just feel the sharpness and the fire, and from the pruning and from things that I have went through. Like, I tell every cast member I talk to, this show is going to show things you didn't see. It is going to air things you didn't hear. The editing is all in production discretion. They do got a check they got to get. So we know everybody got a job to do, but you allow this pressure to help you separate the meat from the bone. And you take that and you go make a meal and eat. So do that with yourself. Do that with yourself, with your soul, your environment. Make the changes you need to, and take that time to look in the mirror and become one with God and who He's made you and what you have left standing, because that is what's meant. And we'll all be there at the finish line and on the sideline cheering you on. I'm still in this race. You know what I mean? My daughter is 2. This just happened. My son is 5. This just happened. And life still goes on. But I am so grateful that my village got even larger with everyone, just because of the fruits of the spirit, because of the pressure that I endured, and the things that I went through. I'm reaping.
Yeah.
Baby, I'm good. So I want us all to be at that place. So for whatever it is, follow us on all our stuff. Send Christal the DMs. Do whatever you got to, so that when you get in that midnight hour, when you quiet, and you find yourself scrolling and your thoughts and other voices are speaking to you, reach out to your base and to your village or your new family. The Ready to Love group, Lex is highly approachable. A lot of the cast members are as well. Like, it's flip the narrative of all the energy and really reach out and get what you need, so that you can get healed, so we can really take a step in the right direction. That's
Yeah.
that's what I got right there, girl.
I love that. I thank you for that. I think that it is, it's interesting, because I want this channel to be a resource for specifically women of color. I am somebody that welcomes everybody, but I know that God, my purpose is to minister to us. And so these conversations that I have with people, and I know that my purpose is to promote love, because I think love is the basis for all of this. So self-love has to be the first love. And I love what Tamasha just said, specifically about weight. And we think about, we hear the statistics of how women of color struggle with obesity and struggle with high blood pressure and all these things that have to do with weight. But I never thought about until tonight that relationship can be specifically narrowed down to the trauma that that all of us have gone through in different ways, right? And so I think that we've ended the conversation with some gems that people can take from this. Most importantly, that our skin tone does not define us regardless of what others say. even if those others are within our community and they are not enlightened as of yet. And I think that we just have to be very, very mindful of what we speak out of our mouth and what we allow to go into our spirit, right? So Tamasha mentioned when you're scrolling, when you're looking at things, I know we all have guilty pleasures that we enjoy watching, but if something is triggering you, disconnect from that.
Mhm.
Focus on feeding your spirit what it needs to fulfill you so that you're able to love yourself. Because if you're constantly comparing yourself to something, that's something that is toxic, and you need to disconnect from that.
Mhm.
So I want every lady on here to give, if there's a way people can follow you or support, make sure that you give that out really quickly, your Instagram or your YouTube or whatever you have that allows people to follow you so they can support, and then we'll go ahead and end this. Tony, do you have a Instagram you want to share?
Just what you have posted at the moment. I'm working on some things, but I don't have anything concrete at the moment.
Okay, there's the flyer for this conversation. It has every lady's Instagram on there. So make sure that you're following them. Make sure that you are subscribed and stay connected, because we'll definitely, be having follow-up conversations for this and other things that we're all dealing with. Tamasha, I have a friend that just wrote a book titled Daughter of a Junkie. And we're going to be doing conversations for adults that, like myself, that come from parents with drug addictions. So much to come. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Lee, can you give us your social media?
Yes. So I think my personal page is on there, but Body X Lee is where all the transformations and wonderful stuff goes on with my women's organization. If y'all, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. People keep asking me on Twitter, do you train people here? I train aliens on Mars. I keep telling y'all that. No matter where you are, I have live training twice daily, virtual training, all of that. And it's just a huge movement of like beautiful Black and brown women that are well in mind, body, and spirit. Is truly like an anomaly. Like it's crazy. So if you are looking for a place where you will be like inspired and all that stuff, definitely tap in with us. It's a great community. Even if you never work out, you can get in there and get inspired in the community. So Body X Lee, and that's the website as well, but it's also the Instagram.
Thank you, Lee. I need to get in there. I need to get in there. Come on, Candy.
Okay.
You can find me mainly on Facebook. I know that's probably not as popular, but at Candy Xenon Author. Also on YouTube, Candy Xenon, or at Single Mom Mindset and Money. I am on Instagram, or I have an Instagram handle at Candy Xenon, CandiezEnon.
All right, Tamasha.
Okay, look, y'all don't do me, because you know what? Tequila Burns, okay, she been getting in me, her and Lex, everybody about my gram. I've been in these streets having babies, so listen, I have okay, I moved to the south and got messing around with the body by Lee. I don't sound like I got two of them in that girl pound. So Tamasha Brown, Tamasha 1 in a million, baby, and that's real. You can find me on Instagram that way, of course, Facebook, and of course, any cast member can get out to me. You can hit me up like that. I ain't giving you my phone number because I'll talk you down.
Don't do it.
How?
Don't do
Yeah,
it. Don't
come
do
on
it.
and do it. Don't do it.
All right. Well, I appreciate you ladies so much. I think this was God ordained for every single one of you
Indeed.
to be
Thank you
here.
so much, Crystal.
Thank you.
No, thank you all.
Crystal,
We
girl,
did
you my Michael Jackson.
Yes.
this together. We did this together. You guys make sure that you're tuned in. I have a conversation with the Cutlers coming. The Cutlers are the couple that have court with the Cutlers, and they talk about relationships. They've been married forever, and so they're going to be my special guests later this week. So make sure that you're tuned in for all that. Dr. Camille, you got to get on here. I'm gonna keep coming back at you. I gotta keep coming at Camille, and she got
Yes.
stuff going on. But I definitely we got to have you come back on to talk about your story. So again, ladies, I thank you. I wish you all a beautiful and productive week, and that God will bless everything that you touch moving forward from here on out. I appreciate you so much, and appreciate every single one of you for watching. Stay tuned, stay subscribed, and I'll see you next time.
Enjoy.
Thank
Thank you.
Enjoy.